Hi, Leo. Nice to have you. Thanks for
Hey
being here.
man, yeah, pleasure, man.
Yeah, we met a few minutes ago and started having a conversation. And as we were talking and as we started diving into more the what this podcast is going to be like, and then you started spitballing about what Bankless is doing as well. So yeah, I thought, you know what? Before we waste any more of this juicy conversation, we might as well start. When we met, I mean, instantly I took a liking to you. You're such a open person and kind person, and you just didn't even question that mask, that guy reaching out to you on LinkedIn. You like instantly were like, "Oh, okay, this is cool. Let's talk," and I so appreciate it. And you have a really cool background, and I'd love to hear again a little bit more about it. And I think it's really interesting for everyone. Like 3 years ago, you were working in marketing and not even in Web3, I think, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
And
correct.
now, and now you're at freaking State Capital, and which is probably one of the like coolest institutional businesses in Web3 for me at least. So yeah, please, like, what do you have to say about all this?
The universe sings.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So yeah, many years ago, I was studying like digital marketing, and I joined like EDF, which is a big energy company in France. Then I joined also like the Matmut, which is a insurance company. So that was like digital marketing work. Then I got a bit bored about this space, and like trying to sell products I don't wanna buy, for example. So COVID happens, and that was the really good moment to deep dive into a new thing that I didn't know. So I started to look at Bitcoin like many months before COVID, and then I just watched it again, and the price was like 3x less than before. So I was like, okay, let's put some money, but I didn't actually know what was Bitcoin, you know. So
Hmm.
I put some money, and then I was like, okay, maybe I should maybe deep dive a bit to understand what I just bought. And that's how I fell into the rabbit hole. So it was like, I had like many time to read a lot about this technology, and I just fell in love with this. So I started to look at some school that were like basically learning about blockchain technology and DLT, and I found Alira, which is maybe the most famous school in France in the blockchain space, maybe the only one so far. And so I learned like how to become a consultant and a project manager in the blockchain space. I got my certification, and then I start working for this school actually. So I gave like some DeFi courses with Manu Redpills, which is a famous guy in the crypto Twitter, French crypto Twitter, and that was also like working for Stake Capital back in the days. So so I started my journey like this, and then I joined Unblocked, which is a development blockchain company in France. I became associate. The famous project we did was the first NFT collection of Lacoste, so the Genesis Pass.
Hmm.
And then after 1 year, I started to be not bored, but I just wanted to learn from the best, you know. So I was looking for another company, and I really like DeFi. So I was looking for a DeFi company, and I met the State Capital team in Paris during HCC. And I just started to speak with them, and there was a position open in the State Capital investment part. So I just joined them like in August, and so now it's like 5 months I'm working for them, and that's really interesting. And I'm working with such a chads and many big brains, and I'm learning a lot. So I really love it, and yeah, that's my background basically.
Yeah, it's so cool. How, like, there seems in Web3 there seems to be this promise that there's no barrier to entry from outside in. Like you like a project, there seems to be this inherent quality to them that you can just step in and work for them. But from having been in this space for a little bit, I know that it's not true. And I know that the best projects and the best businesses do let people in, but they do let the best people in. State capital is like top 0.1% of the entities that you could work for if you're interested in finance, if you're interested in VCs, if you're interested in Web3. What do you think were the key points in your personal journey that made you end up here, that someone who is in a position where you were in 3 or 4 years ago could learn and be like, okay, these are the steps that I need to take in order to myself be there in a few months or in a few years?
That's a good question, and I think there is like many answers. Depends on the guy and so on. But actually, I don't know if I'm part of the best, to be honest. The guy I'm working with are like, yeah, much more smarter than me. But yeah, maybe that's the imposter. I don't know how to say that, but
imposter syndrome. Yeah,
exactly. But what I did, that I just fell in love with this technology. So I was just learning as much as possible. And when I finished Alira, I was like, okay, like, what can I just learn now that will help me to get a good position in the future? And I was just like, okay, let's try about the DeFi. I was hearing a lot about this, and I was like, okay, maybe that it's worth it to have a look at this vertical. So I think that basically DeFi is the best vertical to learn about all the blockchain space. You know, there is like tokenomics, there is DAO, there is like how to solve liquidity problems like liquidity fragmentation and so on. Yeah, you have to deep dive really hard to understand like some, I don't know, like for example, curve. It's not easy to understand at the beginning when your DeFi journey begins. But that's one of the most, the most famous project in the DeFi space, and you have to understand it. So I was like, okay, let's learn. And what I didn't understand, I don't know, like for example, ZK rollups, I was like, okay, so for the next 2 days, I would just read about this and trying to to write some content. And that's also maybe how I entered Stake Capital, because I was trying to write some content on Medium, and the first article that I wrote was about Lens protocol from Aave, and I think that it helps me to deep dive and to understand a bit more how it works, and to speak with like some founders or some core dev of Lens. Helped me to have a network, you know, and one of the best sentence I heard was, "Your network is your net worth." And it's in the blockchain space, it's really accurate. I mean, if you have a good network, you will have some position opens in a few companies, maybe. So yeah, the main thing is to be active in this ecosystem, to learn and again. And I think this is how I entered this company. Yeah, so a lot of work, a lot of reading.
That's super interesting. Learning, jumping into a niche and learning a lot about it. And I do agree with you that DeFi is it is a very interesting niche, because it has all the core concepts that are important to Web3, because even though we try to build businesses on top of the economy, on top of the finances, those are still like the underlying network effect, financial network effect is still super interesting. And there's probably no better place to learn. I went so far deep into the DeFi rabbit hole in 2020 as well. Remember my girlfriend just couldn't believe it, and I was completely obsessed. The era of the 10K% APY, you know, like all the new liquidity farms just pumping out and having to jump token from token. Did you go through that phase as well?
Yeah. I was there during the DeFi summer. It was like super insane, but it was like too much actually. So I actually like the bear market, because you can learn easily and without too much noise and so on. So it's very good.
Yeah, I like it too. And just to wrap up before we jump onto another subject, the network is your net worth part. It is so incredibly important. It's easy. You need to remember that the people who matter in the space and the people who can help you out, their attention is spread quite thin. They have a lot on their plate, and they have a lot of people that are talking to them. And there are a lot of people who I'll call them small guys, because we all start as a small guy. I'm still a pretty small guy actually too, and it is a real jungle where the law of the fittest applies, where you need to prove your worth. You need to, and that's what you did well, and you seem to have done it in a very humble manner, where you were like, okay, first I need to learn, then I'll start to put out some content. There were probably an element of luck of the right people seeing that content. But I also don't really believe in luck. I think everything happens for a reason, and yeah, that's good for you, man.
Thanks. Yeah, actually, I think I had some good luck, like to meet the Stake Capital team at the right moments when there was a position opened, and so there is a part of luck. But yeah, of course, the work I did before helped me for sure.
Yeah, preparation. What is that saying again? It's when preparation meets opportunity. I think it's luck is when preparation meets opportunity, something like this. What have you learned in the past, like in the past 5 months, and especially with regards to investing? Because your whole, and maybe you can dive a little bit deeper into what exactly is your job before you answer this. But what do you wish you could have told your 3-year younger self when you started investing in crypto? Now that you're working with some really smart people who know how to vet and who know how to invest in projects?
That's a good question, actually. It's hard to reply to this. And maybe I learned a lot more about the DeFi space, because that's one of the most complicated vertical so far, in my opinion. But now that I'm working for Stake Capital, so yeah, I know better how to identificate like good projects, and also like scammers and so on, and like and GMI projects, for example, quite easily by reading the deck. But sometimes it's way too complicated for me, like when it's talking about like quants project and so on, with like liquidity and derivatives and so on. It's still a bit complicated for me. So I'm still learning about this, and also like how the TradFi could use those future tools to hedge their position, so to use volatility to hedge their position and so on. So that's the thing I'm learning, like since maybe 2 months. And it's not the easiest part, to be honest, but it's really helpful to understand a bit more the DeFi space. And also, I'm working now with like a guy that joined us in Stake Capital. I was working with BlackRock. He helps me a lot to deep dive it, to understand about the team, the project, and so on. So I learned maybe 3x time faster than before. For sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. If you were talking to someone who either has just got into Web3 or is into it, has, I don't know, like $100 a month to invest, and would like to start with DeFi, what would you tell them? What would be the first like few pieces of advice of where should you start? What should you pay attention to? How should you like spread your investments? Like, what are the things that come to mind?
To learn DeFi, I think that I helped many friends of mine like to understand DeFi, and the best way to do it was to use like the Aave testnet to first like put some assets in collateral and borrow some assets. When you do it, it's incredibly simply. Like just in few clicks, I just borrowed like, I don't know, 20K, and that's awesome. I mean, I don't have any permission to ask. I don't have to wait and so on. It's really nice. So that's the first part to learn, and then maybe to look at the DEX is like how to LP against with two assets, and how to optimize your yields. So maybe basically like use a auto compounding protocol like, I don't know, Beefy, for example, or CVX, or I don't know, Convex for Finance, for example, Stake DAO, of course. And to understand how to use LP positions. And basically when you know how to do this and you know how to use Aave, the last part will be like to learn about Curve, because Curve is the one of the main pieces of this space. And basically, when you understand those three parts, I think that you can just go and try on a blockchain that is not super expensive. For example, Polygon. I started on the BSC, but that's a good entry, and then you switch to Polygon, of course. Don't stay on the BSC if you don't want to get wrecked. But yeah, just I mean, it's way more easier to try and then to understand that just reading something and yeah. So just try with a small amounts on a cheap chain and do some mistakes. But yeah, the mistakes will learn you a lot about
It's a good advice. It's a good piece of advice in general. Like whatever you do, start with dipping your toe a little bit. I wish someone would have taught me that 20 years ago. It would have saved me a lot of pain and a lot of anxiety. Why do you think Curve is such an important protocol in the DeFi space for the whole DeFi infrastructure?
Because first of all, Curve is one of the biggest protocol in terms of TVL, and also that because when you're launching a token, like I don't know, let's say a stable coin or like a liquid staking derivatives, for example, or I don't know, a peg asset, that's a good way to bootstrap some liquidity and yeah, to get some yield. So basically, when you've got a new token, to have a pool that is well incentivized on Curve will help you to get more TVL on your own protocol and to get more exposure and of course, more traction. And also, why Curve is one of the best? It's because I will say that because of the VE tokenomics. That is really the VE holders have the powers to incentivize the pool they want. And because of this, there is new primitives that are coming, such as bribes, and you can earn a bit more of yield using Curve and other protocol like Convex, TakeDAO. You earn to get more cash with your cash, basically, and that's also one of the safest protocol that has been built for now. I think it's never been hacked, just the front end, but it's not like a smart contract failure. So it's really a safe one with a lot of liquidity, so low slippage and so on. And yeah, without Curve, I don't think that the DeFi space will be like this now. So yeah, Curve is for sure one of the best.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I'm starting to think about it or to see a sort of pyramid and all the multiple thousand percent projects that we were talking about kind of being the top of the pyramid that are fleeting. I don't know what happened to these projects actually, and projects like Curve being more of the foundation. How do you think a protocol like Curve will fare? Where do you think it will be in 50 years or in 20 years? How big a role do you think it will play in the world of finance in general?
That's a very good question, and it's going so fast in this space that I don't know. I don't want to say any projection, but it's a bit complicated because maybe with order books in RFQ on the blockchain, maybe hurt a bit the AMM scheme. So
can you elaborate? Because this is outside of my own personal expertise, so I'd love for you to explain a little bit.
I mean, with the AMMs, you can swap any tokens that are pegged or not, basically. But because those assets are in a pool, if the market moves or if you wanna, I don't know, swap a big position and so on, you will have a slippage, for example.
Yeah.
So the slippage will give you less token that you should have in a normal way. So that's the how it works for now. But now there will be new protocols with order books on chain, such as I don't know. Let's say about maybe JMX, DYDX, and so on. And also the RFQ, which is the request for codes, is a model that is used in the traditional finance. So I don't know if the AMM model will survive in 20 years, to be honest. I really don't know. But for now, it's a model that works. And yeah, that helps to bootstrap liquidity on many protocols and to do to use composability and operability of the blockchain. And for now, it's working really well. But yeah, in many years, I really don't know.
Yeah, there's still a lot of question marks. That's why makes it's part of the reason why this space is so attractive. It's that you still have the uncertainty that makes it quite risky and interesting, but at least we're starting to see it formalize, become more structured, but yeah, the whole question of this, and even impermanent loss, it makes it really hard to justify being a liquidity provider if you're not very early, and if you don't have like huge token incentives to do it.
Yeah, basically, I don't use like I'm only using like single assets LPs. For example, W ETH against S ETH or ST ETH, for example. But using like ETH against another volatile token, I think it's more for like market makers and so on that can hedge their risk. They're monitoring their risk and their loss. So if you're not a market maker and you don't have like full time to look at your positions, I don't think it's the best way to start in DeFi. But if you're helping with like two peg assets, for example, it's quite easy and the risk is quite low, but there is still a risk of a smart contracts, hacks, and so on, rug pulls. But that's more a market maker piece, I think.
And how would you, if you were a project founder and you launch a project, you have limited access to liquidity, you have whatever you have, how would you personally go about providing liquidity for that token? Would you still go to the early community that you have in order to ask for their help, or would you use Curve? How would you go about that?
I think that there is like two answers there. As a founder, I think that when you're raising funds or trying to bootstrap your company, it's important to have like market makers to help you to get more liquidity on the markets. Mm-hmm. So that's basically what Stake Capital is doing for some project like, I don't know, Angle or AP Wine. But you also need to, maybe to ask for a pool on Curve and trying to get enough votes to incentivize this pool and attract some users and some liquidity. That's how I will do it, I think. But using Curve is, I mean, you have to use Curve. It depends on your project, but if you want some liquidity and if you are like a stablecoin protocol or kind of, you need to use the CRV voting power and also to accumulate some Curve voting power, I think.
Oh, that's fascinating. You're actually giving me some ideas. I'll probably come back into private conversations to ask you these questions. I'm not sure that's the place. Yeah, I'd love to. We've pretty much had a bit of this conversation before, but what are like pitch decks that you're getting these days? What are the most projects that you're seeing that are getting more traction in your VC world?
So basically, we're trying to focus on the DYD, so the decentralized identity, also on the derivative markets, like all the tools to hedge your position on the markets, but also like infrastructure, like all the ZK rollups and optimistic rollups and so on, and also like projects that are focusing on the MEV and the PBS. So how to separate like the block builder and so on. So that's some narrative that are really present now. And what was your question again?
What are the trends? The trends that you're seeing, and it wasn't part of the question, but what do they mean for the market that we're in?
Yeah, so the trends will definitely be like the ZK rollups. I think that they will be like the way to scale Ethereum, maybe more than the optimistic rollups, in my opinion. But let's say that ZK rollups, it's still early nowadays, and it needs like a lot of developments again to really scale. There is like the ZK VM from Polygon that is working with like the same wallet and so on. So it's basically easy to use. But when you are looking to bridge to the Starknet ecosystem, for example, it's not the same wallet, it's not the same address, and so on. So it's the accessibility of those chains are quite difficult for like newcomers or no coiners, basically. So I think that's a project that will focus on the UI UX of those chains, and that will build some project on the chain can succeed. So that's one of the trends we are looking for. So
do you have one? Do you have
like
one in
what
mind? Like a project in mind that is working on ZK rollup, and what types of solutions are they looking to bring?
Yeah, so there was many of them. There is like ZK Sync, there is Darknet, there was also Scroll which is very good. Aztec, so it's zk.money, the website I think. That is basically providing like a private, like some privacy on the blockchain space. Yeah, so there is like many of them, and also like ZKVM from Polygon that could be really, really nice. But for now, we don't have any. I mean, it should be on the test net, but who knows? I don't know. Still waiting.
What I just realized is that everything that you mentioned, the DOID, the MEV, the whole derivatives thing, and even now with ZK rollup, it's all very infrastructure based. Is that because that's what State Capital does? You guys focus more on infrastructure, or is it because in my mind I'm opposing it to more mass adoption applications, because that's what we're all kind of waiting for? Do you think it's a timing thing where we're just still a few years away from mass adoption, and so we're still focused on infrastructure, or is it more of a strategy for you guys of, hey, infrastructure is where most of the money is going to be, so that's why we're going to focus on it?
Yeah, many answers as well. But basically, in Stake Capital, there is like two verticals. So the investment part and the quant part. And basically, in the quant part, they're doing like some arbitrage, some liquidations, and also some strategies like to hedge their position and so on. So we are looking at those protocol because some protocol will help us like to play with like volatility or to hedge against I don't know, to have like some delta neutral strategies, and yeah, also like the market making side where so we have to look at the new infrastructure and where is the liquidity basically, because that's part of our job to identify those and to play with the markets. So yeah, we need to have a look at those, but also we are trying to onboard some project that will help for the mass adoption. So basically that will help the next 10 million users to access the blockchain and to have a quite comfortable user experience. Yeah,
What are these?
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is like that's for the quant in the quant side, but also like for the investment side, because I think that the next app that will just erase like the technical side of the blockchain and can be successful. You know, like the newcomers. I don't know if the newcomers wants to understand like how the blockchain is working, how do you build the block and so on. They just need like to make some yield on some protocols, but they actually don't know which one and which strategies and so on. So yeah, any tools that will help like to onboard the next users with a quite good user experience can be successful.
We're still so far from all of this. One of the things that I see and think on a little bit recently is each action that you take on the blockchain should not put your assets at risk. If you need to have a very secure setup, if you need to have a cold wallet, a hard wallet, a ice wallet, and then a burner for each transactions that you do, and if you want to play a game each time you play again, and especially because there's these promises of like interoperability and all of this stuff. And so if every time you connect your wallet that has assets on it to a new application, you're actually putting them at risk, it makes you very reluctant to do anything. And it's never going to be like retail is never going to be okay with having $2,000 of assets that are at risk anytime they try to interact with a protocol.
Yeah, I completely agree. But that's also like one of the strengths of DeFi. That's anti-fragile. You know, like the last 2 years, there was a lot of exploits and rug pulls and so on. But every time the dev knows how to avoid those acts in the future, and that's why DeFi is anti-fragile. Like, yeah, every time there's something where happens. And user are losing money every time like protocol getting like more robust, and that's also why now it's quite a jungle. But in the future, I think that it will be like much more secure and so on. There is also like many tools that help you like before signing any transaction to understand what will happen to your assets. Like for example, Fire, which is a Chrome extension, will tell you, like for example, that this contract is at risk, or that if you sign this transaction, you may lose like your NFTs, or allow like unlimited spending of your assets and so on. So now there is like some tools to protect yourself, but it's still a jungle. I agree on this.
I think it's really important what you say about anti-fragility for the protocols right now, because at least it's a very interesting proof of concept, because the fact that we're still here despite everything that's happened, despite all the rug pulls, despite all the scams, it does show that this space is robust enough, that it's not just a castle made of cards that once you blow on it, it's over. But it's still missing anti-fragility at the individual part. There's two ways to approach this. There's the spiritual approach, and then there's the financial approach. When you get scammed, you get scammed. When you get rug pulled, you lose your money. And so if you don't have a good bankroll management strategy for yourself, your money's out, you're probably not going to be back for a while. I called it spiritual, but it's whatever you want to call it. If you make a mistake that results in you losing your funds, whether you get scammed, whether you invest in a protocol that ends up rugging the liquidity, it does make you a little bit stronger, because you have to look at this and learn. Some people are not going to learn. They're just going to be like, all right, this is not for me. I'm going to be out for good. And I do think that one of the most important things of decentralization and of decentralization of finance is autonomy and self-growth and development. You have custody of your own money. You're not going to go to MetaMask and be like, "Hey guys, I lost my money. Can you please put it back onto my wallet?"
Yeah, and also that's also like a reason why mass adoption is still not here. I think because with FTX, that now you have to own your tokens in your wallets to have custody on them. So we learned with FTX basically. But can you ask people like newcomers to use a ledger and to connect it to your MetaMask or Rabbi or whatever, and then also like to sign transaction, to be careful not signing any transaction that pop up on your screen and so on. I think it's really hard for a newcomer to use it, and also like to understand that if you lose your private key and your seed phrase, you're fucked.
It's all over.
It's all over, and there is no door to knock and to ask for your funds again. So that's one also maybe one of the major things to resolve, and that's going to be resolved with, for example, account abstraction. Like, for example, to recover your assets, if you lose your computer and so on, you can refund your wallet and your asset with like credential of, your friends or your social networks, for example, and so on. And when this account abstraction will be fully released, I think it will help mass adoption, because it will be much more harder to lose your assets and to lose control of your wallet, for example.
Is that something that can be built into current infrastructures, or is that like an application that's built on top of it?
Basically, that's a smart contract wallet, and you can access it and unlock it with like some conditions. So basically, your seed phrase, but you can also like connect your wallet with, let's say Twitter and Discord, and also like you can have a recovery friend. Let's call it like this. Like I put my mom on my wallet and say, if I lose it, my mom will be able to unlock my wallet and to give me the access again. And
cool.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think it will really help mass adoption in the near future.
Yeah, one of the things that you were saying was that there is some security. Like, for example, I use Rabbi or Rabbi, I don't know what it's supposed to be called, and it does check the security of the transaction that I sign. The problem is that we're weak. Humans are weak. We have times where we're too confident. We have times where we're too depressed. And when you have maybe a little bit of the two, you're talking to someone, and scammers are getting so freaking smart. It's really scary. And you have to think about everything that you're doing, but you're talking to someone who you've been talking to for a while, or they seem to have everything that makes them a safe partner, and whatever. And they get you on a website and you end up signing the transaction and boom, all your funds are gone. That is scary. Like it happened to me. I'm saying I'm not a genius or I'm not a anything, but I've been in this space for so long. I've already been scammed. And I even there's a guy that I follow who does probably 20, 30 transactions every day, and he still got scammed.
And also like I don't know if you saw, but there was like an OG Bitcoin developer that has his wallet got drained like a few weeks ago. If you think about it, like if even an OG can lose their assets, so how can you ask like newcomers to keep custody on their own assets if even an OG is able to get scammed, for example? I don't know if he clicked on a malicious link or if you download like a malicious software, but basically it can happen to everyone, and that's why you have to use a ledger wallet, like a hardware wallet. Newcomers have to buy those wallets to understand how to use it and so on, and it's a matter of security, but it's hard for newcomers, definitely.
It is, and it shouldn't be that hard, and it can't be that hard because, for example, like I've been part of the Clonex community for a while now. A lot of those guys are artists, for example. That's one of the parts of the population that it's most appealing to. An artist is not like technically, it's not always, they're not always like geeks and who know a lot about computer security. If you want to make sure that the people that you bring in who pay 5, 7, 10K for an asset of your collection, then you need to make sure that they're not going to lose it, because they lose faith and then they tell their friends who tell their friends, and then the whole space kind of feels like a joke after that.
So yeah, that's really hard. And also like those kind of Discords got hacked many times. I think it was like the Bored Ape one. I don't know, but yeah, even like the tools you're using could help you, like some hackers to scam you, for example, or you may click on a malicious link and it looks really like the same, like the real one, and you got scammed. So you have to have like a really really good like digital. How can I say that? Like you have to use like really carefully and yeah, be careful every time. Every time.
And with everything, anything that you download and anything that I think. NFT God just got hacked a few days ago, and he was saying that what happened is that he went to download OBS on his new computer that he just got, and he clicked on a sponsor link, and it happened to install malware on his computer. So it can literally come from anything. And it just goes to show that when you're in Web3, you're kind of expecting threats from Twitter and from Discord. So when you're on it, you're going to be a little bit more careful. But then you realize that scammers are so smart. They're so smart. And actually, I'm going to put this out right now. I would love to have a conversation with a scammer on this podcast. So if anyone listening to this is someone whose main activity is to scam people out of their money, I'm not going to judge you. We all do weird stuff. Some are just weirder than others, but I think it would be a super interesting conversation. So if you're it, please let me know. Is Julien as like smart as everyone says?
Yes.
How smart? Like, what is it like to work alongside him? And he's like this almost mythical figure in this space.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm not really working with him. Like, I don't spend much time with him. But when I do, I'm pretty pretty excited about how we understand the project and how we can like judge the founders and the technology, and to project himself like, how can I use this tool for my company or for my portfolio, for example. You really understand really quick the things, and so he's basically really smart and really clever. We learned from the market that it's really how can I say that? Like with it was with like the 3AC founders or with SBF and so on. When everyone is loving one guy, and it becomes like really, it could be really negative and so on. Even if he looks smart and so on, don't trust him. Just verify everything he says. Most of the time, it's true. Sometimes maybe not. I never spot like something.
No one has a perfect scorecard. It just doesn't exist.
Quite good, but yeah, basically you need to to don't trust anyone. And even if it's smart, just be careful. Like as we say, like a few minutes before, you can get scammed by anyone, and your digital health it has to be perfect. So, but he is really smart in what he does for like many years now. He built like StakeDAO, Blackpool, Rex, and also his hedge fund and all the quant side. I mean, it's really huge what he's building, and he's on many verticals, and he understands really well the markets and all the protocols and so on. So that's really nice to work with such a guy.
He's really inspiring. Like on the execution side of things, to be able to that's actually what you mentioned about being on so many verticals and actually like doing well on them. It inspires me to be better because it is almost physical proof that it is possible. And what you're saying that is also that makes my brain go again is the fact that we want to build a trustless environment, a trustless financial system, and more than financial system, actually, just like we want to build a society that lives on the blockchain, where we are supposed to be able to kind of trust everyone because there's the history on the blockchain, and because you should be able to identify everything. But you still have people who are leading this, and those people still have their own agenda, their own incentives, their own ego, sometimes fragile, their own inner child. You don't know how they were when they were a child. Maybe they were loved, maybe they were not loved. And so now maybe they try to, like, you never know who's doing what for which reasons.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, nothing to say. I mean, you said everything. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. How do you think there's any way that we bypass that? Not bypass, it's not the right word, but you know what I mean.
What you mean exactly? Like to become,
Yeah, how do we make sure that people become as transparent as blockchains? I don't know. I don't think there's actually an answer for that. But
I mean, basically there is not. But like blockchain is it's only math. So if you can verify that it's working as it has been built, I mean, how can you bypass this? It's built to execute this in that way. Basically, it will be hard to ask the protocol and the smart contract to do another way. But if you are a human and you have a gun on your head, and the guy is saying to you like 1 + 1 it's equal to 3, say it or you die. You would say it, but the smart contract will never do it, and that's why humans are corruptible and smart contracts are not. So we don't need to think to trust people. Just work with smart contracts and math, and that's why we're here, I think.
Yeah, at least we're probably not going to solve the human part just yet, but at least you have the technical part, the blockchain part that helps shed some light. But I think what the Luna debacle showed us is that the data is there, but it's really hard to interpret, because when you're talking about something like Luna, it's probably billions of transactions, like billions and billions, tens of billions going in and out, and so it's hard to sift through. Did you follow the Fat Man account on Terra?
Nope.
So he's a guy who made he at the very last few weeks of the Luna decentralized governance process, he made a proposal that made some noise. And after that, he created a Twitter account called Fatman Luna, I think, or something like that, where he has been just being a whistleblower and sipping through data and trying to shed light on some things. And one of the things that did come out was that, okay, the data is there, and we can, after a lot of time and after a lot of effort and after many people doing their work, it's still kind of hard to bring as much accountability as is needed.
Yeah, and also with the Terra story, like once again for newcomers, how do you know that this stablecoin is going to crash? I mean, a lot of OG in this space knew that algorithmic stablecoin is just going to zero, and there is no way it's not going to zero. And there was a lot of guys that were saying, like, I don't know, I'm thinking about like Token Breeze, for example, a famous French guy in the DeFi space. He always said that like Terra is going to crash, and before Terra Luna, Dogecoin has built like basis cash that's just finished to zero as well. So, but you need to understand the protocol, how it works, the minimum, and also like to know the founders and to be sure that it's 100% decentralized. It's not, but it's on the good way. And yeah, so basically, like a lot of people lose money because they didn't know that this stablecoin was just like a scam. Basically, you need to have a lot of knowledge to navigate safely in this space, and that's why I think there is no mass adoption. But you can see like that many big companies are like trying to enter this space. I don't know, like. A lot of NFT collection for like big brands, but also like the traditional finance is going to the blockchain for many reasons, like because of the liquidity. It's cheaper to do some transaction on the blockchain space, and so mass adoption will come, but it's still I don't think it will come in like the next year or in 2 years. I think that maybe in 5 or 10 years it's going to be good, but now.
Yeah, I agree with you, and especially what you're making me think is you're going to have bigger brands that are getting in because they see the appeal, because it's interesting for their business models. They understand the value of decentralizing, of incentivizing people in their, let's call them communities a little bit more. But then the people who enter, they find themselves with tokens, and one token leads to another token. Because you go see the value of yours on CoinMarketCap and you realize that there's thousands more. And so you're going to look at that one and you don't have the proper knowledge. And so you're going to put your money in the next Luna, or, oh, my token is available on FTX. So you're going to go on FTX. You don't necessarily do the due diligence. And even if you did, man, I trusted FTX. Absolutely. It was...
Everyone trusted FTX. It was really hard to say that FTX was a scam. Basically, like a lot of OGs were a scam as well. And the guy who says, like, I knew this, there is not so much, I think.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect. Man, that whole... I saw a tweet a few days ago. Like, I don't know how factual it is, but... basically like Genesis lending money to Balancer, lending money to 3AC, lending money to FTX, lending money to Alameda. And basically like who owns the money, who's responsible. And that's a little bit where I was going, where individuals are really going to have to learn where to put their money and who they're trusting. And we might need a few more cycles of founders understanding, okay, this thing called the blockchain is actually bringing some accountability, and actually need to pay a little bit of attention to what I'm doing. And maybe we'll go back to like what the Web3 ethos actually was.
Yeah, nothing to say. I mean, it's. I agree with you, man.
Is there any, like on the institutional side, maybe what's being said in State Capital or in other, if you talk to other people in your space, but is there any doubt of where we're going, or do people take for granted that has already been built, is anti-fragile and is going to go the distance? Or is there still, okay, this is a proof of concept, we're not too sure? Was the sentiment on the institutional side?
I think that now the stage is like it's a POC, a proof of concept for now, but we see like many institutionals like coming in this space. So I think it's going to be more mature, and like I don't know if you saw, but like the SG, the Société Générale, made they borrow some DAI on MakerDAO, for example. So I think that they're coming, and they know that there is like some good thing to see on the DeFi space, but it's still a bit early, I think, for now.
Yeah, it's still
very I mean, there is like a lot of Americans, hedge funds and companies that are coming to the DeFi space. But in France, for example, I don't know many of them, and they are still a bit afraid of this technology. Are they afraid, or do they don't want users to come to DeFi? That's another question. But I think that the movement is growing now, and institutional knows that it's really worth it to have a look at the space.
The big question that this raises, or not the question, but you're going to have, and it seems to come up a lot in my professional life these days, you're going to have value providers and value extractors. And for now, the bigger names, like a lot of things that happened around Bored Apes screamed value extractors. Like, I don't want to judge. I think that you guys doing some pretty amazing stuff. They're really taking it. It didn't exist 2 years ago, and now they've built something that's huge, something that is quite remarkable. Everything that they did together might not be absolutely perfect, but that's not my place to judge. But yeah, in the next few years, we're going to see two types of people. You're going to have people that come here to say, all right, there's a lot of liquidity here. How can I extract as much as I can? And you're going to have people who come in and are like, okay, this is really cool. I can actually use it to provide value to people who are already part of my network. The first guest that I had on this show, Tara, she's building a company called Co-Create, and she is helping brands basically understand tokens and launch their own token in a very safe way. And they really grab them by the hand and guide them. And she understands those traditional businesses, and she understands the ethos of Web3 and the spirit in which these tokens should be used. But yeah, I really hope that we see more value providers and people who come in and understand that decentralization is really good. If you do it with the motive of doing good, everyone benefits, because you bring more longevity to your business, you bring more longevity to your framework, and it's harder to build things over time. It's easy to make something, to break it, and then to just like take money for the short term. But if you build it over time, it does compound, and then there are non-financial and non-objective things that come into play, like the loyalty that you get from the people who are part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, yeah, this has been a really cool conversation. Do you have any last words that you'd want to add?
I don't know. Just be careful of the markets, because I don't think we are done with this trend. But that's only my opinion. Don't trust me again. But I'm the worst trader in the world. But yeah, just be careful, and yeah, just you have to care about decentralization. And I think that's decentralization is a way to make the world better, much better. I really want like Google and Facebook and all the GAFAM to have less control in our lives, and I think that decentralization will help definitely. And yeah, when you look at centralization and you understand like where the problems in this society comes from, you understand like maybe decentralization is the right solution. It's really hard to get. But when you have it, you can control everything. Control like you have some visibility, and everything is transparent, and no one can have the entire control on a protocol or on a blockchain and so on. And I really think that's the most innovative thing in the blockchain. Like decentralization is really important.
What do you think is the full decentralization is just not efficient? There's always going to be a balance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, like even from a legal standpoint, I do think that entities, businesses, protocols, whatever you name it, that are decentralized should get benefits. The revenue should not be, if you're doing a DAO, the revenue should not be qualified as revenue and shouldn't necessarily all be taxed upon. Have you ever thought about this? And where do you think is the line? Like, when do you start defining something as decentralized, and where do you think is the risk? Because you're going to have people that are going to try to extract value out of this by calling themselves a DAO while just really being not decentralized at all.
Yeah, that's a good question. Basically, I think that you have to have like a really good governance. The first that come in mind is like the Aave one. Which is really good. The tokens have to be like well distributed and so on. And basically, you need the funder not to have like a big control or a big voice when voting some proposal in the governance forums. For example, I think that revenue sharing is helping like decentralization, but also like. What it helps is maybe like the V token models. Like basically users are involved in the protocol for many years, and it helps like to have like real extractable value and not like acting like a scammer and so on, like trying to fuck the protocol.
Mm.
Actually, like for like the AMMs or derivative protocol and so on, I think that when you have an order book, for example, it has to be off chain for like many practical reasons. So it's not really decentralized because
Yeah.
who knows if the guy who has control on the order book will not try to scam some people and so on. So it's basically really hard to have like a 100% decentralized protocol. But the goal is to tend to 100%, but it will be really hard, I think. And also like something that will not help. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, Vitalik was talking about this, like the one vote for one person. Even if you are like a whale and you have like a ton of Aave or I don't know, you should like have like just one vote because in that way, like the Witcher are basically the control on the protocol and like on the future emissions of token and so on. So is it really decentralized in that way? I don't know. So there is like many maybe improvements to make
Yeah.
at this
And
point.
so many questions to ask.
I don't know if I'm wrong or not, but that's my point.
I don't think it's possible to be wrong with what you're saying. I don't know. I'm really like what we've been doing, for example, with JPEG Vault. We decentralized ownership, and we did pretty well in decentralizing ownership of the assets that are owned by all of us. We did pretty well in decentralizing ownership of our own token as well. Like founders didn't get an outrageous amount, and we didn't let any VC or fund or outside backer amass a disproportionate amount. For example, for everything that had to do with the strategy, it was pretty centralized. Like we have the vision and we work towards it. We figure out what the best steps are, and we propose them to the community and to the holders. If, for example, a regulator were to look at this, they'd probably, because they have to make rules for everyone, they would probably look at this and say, all right, this doesn't qualify as a decentralized project. Whereas we are decentralized at heart. Like we've always made sure that at least most people agree with what is happening and where we're going, and that this is the best. And that's where I think the lack of flexibility in systems, and like we're both from France, so we both know what it is like, and it is one of the countries. I mean, I don't know many other administrations in the world, but I've lived in Canada, for example. It was so easy to deal with the administration, but in France,
Also in
heavier.
Also in Portugal, it's really easy as well. I think it's a French problem, but we love
Yeah,
it. So.
it might be, but it is a general problem of when you want to rule for everyone, you don't leave too much room for error. And I would love for regulators to come in and to start putting in rules and to start setting up guidelines. But I hope there's some like breathing room for smaller projects to be able to come in without like backers who have millions and a huge network, because that was part of the promise also.
Also, like I don't think that the legal framework is like really good for the users. I mean, let's say that you are using like a Lens protocol instead of Facebook and generating you're creating some value because you're, I don't know, posting like some interesting studies and so on. And you get some money because of your followers that just want to tip you, for example. And if you want to cash out this money, you will be taxed. I think like every time that you're providing value and get money back because it's blockchain, if you want to cash out this money, you will be like, the legal framework is not well done on that side, I think. I really think that's also why there is no mass adoption for now, basically, because you're just generating value, earning some tokens, and you could like use this to live and I don't know, to buy some stuff and so on, but you cannot because of this legal framework that is basically not really well made for users.
And it's not value based. In an ideal world, how would it work? I personally don't know.
I don't know. That's not my job, but yeah, I think it's really complicated, like to differ from gains from speculation and so on, and gains from like value generating, for example.
Yeah.
How the regulator can know that this is not speculation and it is like well earned, for example. I don't know. I really don't know, and that's why it's really hard.
That it is that we can agree on. I come from a law background, so I've thought about this quite a bit. Been trying to think like how could this work. I don't want to ask too much because I know that when you're providing value, there's a social contract with the governments, with the state, the nations that we live in, and so if you live here, you kind of have to agree to play by the rules, and so the taxman's going to come one way or another. I wish it was easier, and I wish it wasn't so. For example, in France, I think there's an imbalance between the value that you provide and the value that is extracted from you, and in the choice that you have. Because as an entrepreneur, for example, it's hard to swallow that you give out so much money to so many entities, government included, and that you don't get that much in return. That's a whole other thing. I honestly think that to have a good legal framework, at least in France, we would have to just throw everything that exists out and just rebuild and leave some room. I just think that everything is just too objective. Life is not objective. It's very relative. There's different people who have different experiences. And honestly, the best law should not be hard coded into a book. It would be just common sense of, all right, this person obviously did that for that reason. Like, it's not hard to see. It just takes a person that's they should get sued, or they should go to jail, or these guys are building something that's really cool. They've obviously have the right ideas at heart. Let's help them. Let's maybe give them some leeway. But anyway, that's the idealist.
Maybe for another podcast.
Maybe for another podcast. Yeah, man. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for coming.
My pleasure.
If anyone wanted to reach out to you, who would you like to talk to? Who should talk to you? What are the people that you're looking for right now, either personally or professionally? And what's a good place to contact you?
What do you mean? Sorry, like I didn't get it.
I don't know. If are you for State Capital looking for certain people in particular, like for example for your deal flow or whatever, or you personally in crypto, in Web3 or outside? Are there some specific people that you would like to talk to?
Basically, yeah. I mean, like all the DeFi guys. I really like to speak to them because every time I'm learning like new stuff. But yeah, basically, if the guys listening to us like want to send me like their decks and so on, of course they can do it on my Twitter and so on. Just send me a message. You can just contact me on Twitter, for example. On Twitter, I'm quite active. So yeah.
That's awesome. And it will be linked below.
Perfect.
Thanks, man. Thanks a lot. I like talking to you, and I'm sure we'll do this again. So
was a pleasure.
Was a pleasure. Yeah, you too.
Thanks a lot.
The universe sings.